How's it going, y'all? Welcome to my channel. So I recently made this collection of 10,000 carpet patterns and I uploaded it onto my Gumroad account for free. And today I wanted to show you how I use one of these patterns to model carpet in one of my Blender scenes. So something like this. So the first thing you want to do is kind of do some research. And I found that the IKEA website is actually a good place because for each product they have a lot of images about it, and then they also have a lot of really good description about it, and especially the measurements of the product. Like for this particular carpet, I found all the measurements that I needed, and this gave me a good idea as to what it would look like in my scene. So once I had the measurements down, the next thing that I did was kind of like analyze some of the images, and kind of one thing that I noticed about this particular carpet was that the hair strands were kind of like this small cylinder shape, as you can see here. Then I also noticed that the tips were kind of like spreading out, if you will, like a little more puffy on the tips. So I kind of kept that in mind when I started to model my carpet. I made sure that the strands looked like a cylinder, and then I made sure that the tips kind of looked like they're spreading out in different directions, as you see here on some of these. So yeah, back in Blender, let's get rid of the cube. The first thing that I did actually, I changed the units from meters, centimeters. This makes it easier. And if we look at our sample here, it's 300 by 200. So the first thing you want to do back in Blender is add a plane, and then with the transform tab, change the dimensions. So 200 by 300. The Z, which is the height, I didn't worry about that right now because that's gonna be affected or added with the hair strands themselves. So we'll do that later. And one of the reasons I wanted to model carpet is because it's good practice. Like I'm kind of new to Blender, so this gave me a good practice modeling this product, and it also introduced me to the hair particle systems, which was kind of nice. And so yeah, the next step you want to do is it's optional actually, I feel, but I didn't want my carpet to have this smooth, clean surface. I wanted my carpet to have some indentations and some waves or some curves to it. So under edit mode, I did a couple of subdivisions. The first time I did 10 cuts. Then the second time I did 3. And I felt this gave me enough vertex points and geometry to kind of play around with the surface of the carpet. The next thing that I did was kind of turn on proportional editing, and then I selected random. And with the move tool, I started moving these vertex points. I moved them up a little, and as you can see, when you move them up, different points are being affected. That's because we chose random. So basically what I did is kind of move some of these slightly, again, throughout the carpet. I didn't want it to have a smooth surface. I want to give it some sort of indentations. There we go. Maybe the corners are not like straight, maybe they're bent in a little. So yeah, just play around with it. Once you're happy with it, you can go back to object mode, right click, shade smooth, and then under normals, make sure you select auto smooth. Just make it smoother. And as you can see, if you look at the surface, it looks like it has some indentations now. It's not going to be completely straight. And so then the next thing you want to do is kind of actually add the hair strands to your carpet. To do that, just go into the particle properties here, hit the plus sign. This will add a new particle system, and change it from emitter to hair. And so this will add the hair strands to your carpet. The number of hair strands that appear on your surface is actually determined by this emission number here. Right now set to 1,000. And I actually like to keep this number low for two reasons. One, I have a slow computer, so things render faster when this number is lower for me. And also this allows me to actually zoom in into one of the individual hairs and kind of see how it's being affected with the changes that I make to it. For example, the hair length. Right now it's really long. It's like 400 centimeters, which is too big for a carpet. Back in our sample, I saw that the pile thickness was 50 millimeters, so I just kind of went with that. So for the hair length, you could put in 5. But this determines the length of the hair on your carpet, so you just kind of play around with it, whatever you need it to be. And as you can see, the hairs are a lot smaller. But it looks like a really thin cylinder. I wanted to give it more volume. One thing that I did actually, you can do is under render properties, if you're using Eevee, which I am, go under curves and go to strip. And as you can see, the base or the root of the hair got a lot wider now. And but we want this to be a cylinder, so we want the tip not to be pointy. We want it to be wide like the bottom. So back in the particle properties, you can go into hair shape. And then the way this works is the root is the bottom part, the tip is the top of the hair strand, and the diameter scale kind of is multiplying whatever this value is. So right now the root 100 centimeters is being multiplied by 0.01, which kind of makes it hard. So I like to change this to just 1. That way I know everything's being multiplied by 1 here. And then I see that 100 is too much, so I maybe want to make it millimeters, so maybe 3. And then I want the tip to be the same, so 3 millimeters. And as you can see, the tip's still pointy. That's because this closed tip is still activated. So we uncheck that. And now that the tip, the top, and the root are kind of the same. But it's starting to look more like a cylinder, but it's still flat. It doesn't have that roundness or that volume a cylinder has. So to add more volume to this, what I did was I activated the children. So this basically is going to add more hair on the carpet surface, but it's going to add it around these original hair strands. So if this is a parent, the children will be around it. So I like to use simple. As you can see, there's more hair on the surface now, from none to simple. And if you see stuff floating around, just ignore it. We'll fix that in a minute. So let me just zoom into one of the hair particles. So the reason things are floating around is because the children are kind of far from the parents, so we want to bring everything closer together. And we do that by changing this radius. If we reduce a number, this is going to bring the hairs kind of closer together, as you can see here. And I think 3 millimeters should be fine. And then we can just zoom into one of them so you can kind of see what it's looking like. There we go. So yeah, looks more like a cylinder, has more volume. But I think it's still straight. So another thing that I remember from our sample was that the tips were kind of spreading out. So to do that, one of the things that I did was under clumping. If you increase the number, the top part comes closer together. We want the top part to kind of like spread out more. So if we reduce the number all the way to -1, the bottom part, the root, comes closer together. So that's what I did. I made the root come closer together so that the top or the tip can look like it's spreading out. Then I also played around with this value, the twist. This makes the hairs kind of go around each other. And the good thing about this, it makes the hair strand look more compressed, like it's coming closer together. And I thought like a 0.3 was enough for me. Then another thing you can do is under roughness. Right now I still feel like it's a little too straight, the hairs. I want to give them some bend. I want them to look like they're bending a little. So if you increase the random value, like slightly, not a lot, you can see that it's how the hair particles or the hair strands kind of move around or bend a little bit. I think a 0.002 should be enough. Then another thing that I did actually, under the king type, I chose spiral. And this basically determines the style of the hair strand, but because the values are so small right now, it doesn't really affect it. But I found that with spiral, I can kind of affect the tip a little, which is kind of what I wanted. I wanted the tips to kind of point in different directions, and this allowed me to do that. So if you play with these settings, you'll see that. See how the tips are kind of like rotating and pointing in different directions now, and you can randomize that. Then make sure the axis is Z and just move it around. And that's pretty much it when it comes to the hair strand. Again, we wanted to create a cylinder, and we wanted the tips to kind of look more puffy, like they're spreading out in different directions. And so yeah, that's pretty much it for that. The next thing that I did was actually, save your file. So the next thing that I did, I added a new the material, the patterns to the carpet. So if you go under shading, I like to keep this under viewport shading for now because I don't need to see it now. Then under select your material or your object, make a new material. Make sure you change the name to carpet, and then Shift A, search for image texture, and then on here on open, just find the carpet pattern that you want. I'm just gonna choose one randomly. Doesn't matter. Let's see. Then once you're ready, just connect this node, the color to the base color, and that should apply the pattern to your carpet. If you want to give your carpet a little bit of shine, and you can reduce the roughness and increase the clear coat. This will make some of the hairs a little more shiny. But I'm just going to increase the roughness, so I don't want my hairs to be shiny, so something like that. You can play around with the values. Then you go back to layout mode, and then here, go under the material preview here, so you can see what it's looking like. And here's a pattern itself. I'm actually going to change this because I want more color so we can see it more contrast. To do that, you can also go under material properties here, and then here's our image that we chose. So you click on the little folder, you open up the folder, and you can select a new one. Now it's too light, maybe something like this. Okay, I'm happy with this new selection. It has more shapes. I just want to show you what it'll look like. So yeah, once you add your pattern to it, you're pretty much ready to render it. What you can do is kind of set up your camera. On the camera, under the transform tab, if you go to view, click on this camera to view, you can zoom in and kind of get closer to your carpet like this. And then what I like to do when I render, because I have a slow computer, I try to keep this to solid, the viewport. And then under the particle properties, right now we have the 100 hair strands on the carpet. I know that just looking at it, that's not enough. There's a lot of like empty space. So I'm going to increase that number. But before I do that, under the particle system, I'm going to turn off the preview mode here. So it won't render on my computer, but it will render when I render the final image. So I probably have to go really high for this, so 200,000 maybe. There we go. And then another thing that I like to do when I render something for the first time, I just like to keep the number kind of low because I don't need it to be perfect. I just want to see what it'll look like. And so yeah, well, now we're ready to render. Okay, so the render has finally finished. I actually went ahead and I rendered it a couple of times just so you can see different angles, and I actually used a different pattern as well. And overall, I'm kind of happy with the amount of hair strands that are showing up on the carpet itself. In the end, I did 210 for the hair strands. But yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to modeling a carpet or the steps that I took. Again, just a quick recap. We added the plane, then we went into edit mode and kind of like moved the surface around to give us some indentations. Then we added the hair particle system and just play around with the settings here under emission, hair length, and also the children and the hair shape settings. We kind of play around with those. So just play around with those yourselves and to give your carpet the look that you want to. And then after that we just added the material and then just rendered it. And yeah, that was pretty much it. I'm actually gonna include this file on my Gumroad account, so you can download it and kind of see these settings here that we made. But yeah, that's it for today. Thanks for watching and have a good day.